so intensely, the more pleasure is going to come out of it. So it's all proportionate. At the same time, when you have desire, but you cannot have that object for some reason, then your anger builds up. Why cannot I have this, this and that? And that anger is also proportional to the amount of desire you have. Now, obviously, every single desire that you have is not going to be fulfilled. If you have 10,000 desires, out of that maybe 100 will be fulfilled. Out of that 9,900, you will be just struggling, right? Yeah. So, really we are not going anywhere, right? Out of getting 100 objects is a perfect combination where the amount of desire and the availability of object, everything has to meet, right? Then you have pleasure. But it's relative pleasure, right? But all those other 9,900 and whatever desires are going to be unfilled. So you're going to be so upset that you're not going to be able to even enjoy that 100 that you got out of 10,000.
Correct. Correct.
So we're really not going anywhere. So this material world, that's why it's so useless.
Yeah. That's why we are miserable.
That's why we are so all miserable all the time. So the spirituality says that come out of this unending cycle. Just come out of this desire thing. The desire is what keeps this world alive for you. So when you go into meditation, your desires are gone. And yet you have pleasure. You have the same pleasure that you always had. The pleasure was built into the consciousness. So when you go into meditation, and when you meditate on the formless consciousness, that was the Kamdenu. That was the Holy Grail. That's what everything came out of. Beers came out of it, everything came out of it. But ultimate pleasure was in that, not in the objects. Objects can never give you the pleasure because they themselves are finite. So it's just impossible, right? So if you really analyze the whole process of pleasure, you can say that it's nowadays obviously the whole thing is material. Everything is objectified. That, oh, this gives you this much pleasure, this gives you pleasure, so this much should cost you more than this and that and all that. And every single thing in the society has been created based on that, right? So, so the meditation is the way where at least temporarily you can realize yourself and realize that relative pleasure from. But again, it goes step by step. In the beginning, it's going to be just a peace, right? Peace of lack of thoughts, peace of lack of society, lack of material world. Just that alone will give you peace because you really be working like dog in the real world, trying to collect, have more pleasure, this and that, and it's really tiring us out. So when you sit down to meditate for 15-20 minutes, you'll be at peace. Say, okay, at least I'm not chasing any objects, I'm not chasing any situation, I'm not chasing any people.
But are we chasing the pleasure of when you're meditating?
Right.
Aren't you chasing the
yes,
bliss?
In the beginning, yeah. You're actually chasing the bliss state also.
Bliss, yeah.
So that is also a desire. That is also a desire in the beginning. But then at some point, that also will dissolve. And then you will realize that you are what you are. And that's it. Just knowing that you are, that itself becomes a pleasure. So again, it's a step-by-step process, right? So now, the problem is the illusion. The whole world is looking us to us as for real because of all these interactions that has taken place. In some people's world, marijuana would not exist. In other people's world, marijuana will be the sole thing. For them, that will be the only thing. Morning, evening, at night, whatever, right? For other people, will be alcohol. So our world is created by us, basically, our desires, right? So the material aspect of the whole thing is also becomes a thought in our mind. So there's every single thing that you have about the universe, you break it down, ultimately is the thought, right? That is the fractal. That is the fractal that created the material world. These are the fractals of the fractals. As Bakul Bhai saying, so our rishis went back, like this material world, he broke it down into fractals. But what is the fractal of the fractal? If you really break down, every single object that we perceive is a thought process, right? If I see you, but ultimately it's stored in the mind in a form of a thought. That, okay, Mr. Shanoy looks like this. So next time I see, I'm supposed to call him, hi Mr. Shanoy, right? So it becomes a thought. So the same way, the duality, the material nature of the whole universe is also a thought, right? So now, when we transcend the mind and we reach to a state of thoughtlessness, that's when the bliss will come in. So thought is ultimately a creation of the mind, right? Mind has, as an instrument, has a capacity to hold on to the thoughts. Next time if I want to see you and recognize you, I have to hold on to your image in the form of a thought. It's like basically decimal system, right? It's all digital. Just how every single picture that's on the computer screen, they're pixels, right? They're all tiny dots. So all those tiny dots, various combination creates all these things, right? In the movie screen, the same thing. All these small dots ultimately creates a picture. So every single thought about the universe creates the image of the universe in our mind. So when we want to transcend the mind, we want to reach the thoughtless state, the mind disappears, so everything disappears. So if you really look at in a broad context, time, space, every single thing is a creation of the thoughts. So everything exists in a thought form in our mind, right? So just like, because we always discussed in the past that time is a creation of the mind because it's a relative thing. We measure the time when the sun goes from one end horizon to the other end of the horizon. But it's an image that we store. Okay, the sun was here, now the sun is here, so one day passed. So it's all relative thing. You come out of the solar system, there is no time. The time is a creation of the mind. Same thing is a space. I'm measuring the space between, say, okay, this room is big. But how do I base my opinion based on what? I look at one wall, I look at another wall, right? There is always a fraction of a time frame between looking at one wall and the other, right? So when I go from one wall to the other, again, my mind has to capture that image of one wall before I make it to another wall, and then I measure the distance. So the space is also a creation of the mind. So when we transcend the mind, even the time disappears, even the space disappears, everything disappears. So, and yet, to us, everything looks alive. The problem is the faulty instrument that we have. See, consciousness is looking at all these things, right? But the instrument itself is faulty. Our DMI is an unsteady instrument. It's a instrument of change. It's like a fan that's continuously rotating, and you're trying to look on the other side, it's going to be broken up continuously. Now, this other side of the fan, the world is not moving at all. But if the fan is moving, obviously to us, the world is going to appear as moving continuously, right? The same way, if there are clouds in the sky and there is a moon, and the clouds are moving fast, you think the moon is going that way, and the clouds are going, but the clouds are moving, not the moon. So if you have a jaundice, you have a yellow, the whole world looks yellow, everything looks yellow. So it's the faulty instrument that we are given that is a problem. So that's why we want to transcend the DMI. Then we're going to realize the true state of consciousness. That will happen only when we stop using the faulty instrument. So BMI is an instrument given to us to enjoy. So it is just the creation in our mind. The whole universe is just a creation. And yet we have not gone anywhere. Big Bang has not taken place. Galaxies have not been created. Mountains have not been created. Rivers have not been flowing. You and I don't exist at all. It is just a wrinkle in the consciousness. The consciousness, just the way we never left our bed when we traveled to Switzerland. We never left our bed, and yet we did. In the dream, we were seriously in Switzerland. Whatever, right? So all these are experiences. That's all. That doesn't mean the world exists. The whole world is an experience. It's just an experience. So that's why, but that's not our true nature though. That's the thing. So a waker will laugh at all the dreams that he dreamt, right? The same way, once we wake up, we will laugh at all these things that we're seeing right now and believing in it, right? That's the point. seeing dream is nothing wrong with it.